So welcome to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over the GCSE Maths past paper of November 2024 on the foundation tier, paper 3, which is a calculator paper. Now before we get started working through this paper, a little reminder that I'll include a question breakdown in the description below, so if there's a particular question that you're not sure about, then you can see what topic it relates to and maybe go back and revise and review that topic. And I'll also include a link to the 162 Maths contents page, which gives you easy access to all the video lessons that go through all the topics in greater detail, along with topic tests, audits and other exam paper walkthroughs. So let's get started on question 1. So question 1 says work out 1/4 of 780. Now for this, a couple of ways you can do this. You can either type it in all its entirety on the calculator by doing 1/4 multiplied by 780, or you could do 780 divided by 4 multiplied by 1. So any of those would give you the answer of 195. For question 1b, it says work out the value of 19 squared. So again, in your calculator you can just type in 19 squared, or alternately do 19 times 19, which should give you an answer of 361. For question 2, it says simplify y plus y plus y, which should give us an answer of 3y. Moving on to question 3, it says 3 apples cost 96 pence. Work out the cost in pounds of 12 apples. So for this, what we need to do is we need to do that there are going to be 3. So if you imagine that one packet is 3 apples, then we're going to need 4 packets. So it's going to be 4 times 3 lots of, well, it's actually 4 lots of 96 pence, which will give me an answer of 384 pence, which equals £3.84. Alternately, you could just do 3 times and convert the price in pounds, so it's 0.96, in which you should get the exact same answer. So the answer then is £3.84. Moving on to B, it says in total the cost of 40 cartons of apple juice and 20 cartons of orange juice cost £21.50. Work out the cost of 4 cartons of apple juice and 2 cartons of orange juice. So for this, what we need to establish is that in order to get this order, what I need to do is just simply divide 40 by 10, in which I'll get 4, and divide 20 by 10 to get 2. So to get the price of this, all I then need to do is £21.50 divided by 10, which should give me an answer of £2.15. Moving on to question 4a, it says write these numbers in order of size. So all we need to do is just write these in ascending order, or from smallest to largest. So we should have -1, 0, 1.8 and 2. Question 4b, it says write these numbers in order of size. Start with the smallest. So for this, you've got a couple of options. You can convert them into decimals. So this is going to be 0.5. That's going to be 3.1. This is going to be 0.75. And 7/8 gives me an answer of 0.875. So then using either, I would always opt, when these particular questions, the question I always get asked is, can I write down the decimals in it, or do I need to write what it is in its original format? Now I would always recommend writing in its original format, but use the decimals to help decide. So the order you should have is a quarter, which I don't know why I've put 0.75, that should be 0.25, in which we get a quarter, we get a half, we get 7/8, and we get 3 1/10. Moving on to question 5, it says the composite bar chart shows some information about how Callum travelled to school. In January, how many days did he walk to school? So in January, walking is the light grey. So we're going from 15 all the way up to 19. So that's going to be 19 minus 15, which should give us an answer of 4. It then says in which month did he cycle on as twice as many days as he walked. So in this, what I would strongly recommend that for these particular questions is you kind of just write down what each section is, just to make it a little bit easier for you. And here we're looking at 12 and then 21, so that's going to be 9. And in April we're looking at 3 and here we're looking at 7. So going back to the question, in which month did he cycle on twice as many days as he walked? The answer then is going to be February. And then for 5C, it says, in May, Callum went to school on 20 days. He cycled on a quarter of the days. He walked on the other days. Show this information on the bar chart. So for 20 days, a quarter of 20 is 5, leaving a remainder of 15 days. So if I go back to the composite bar chart, I need to go up to 5 in this, in which you want to have cycle at the bottom. And you want to be going up all the way up to 20. And again, you should be using a ruler for this, but just for save time in this video, I'm just going to do it freehand, in which you should end up with this. And then, like I said, what you want to then do is probably do some very light shading with a pencil, and hopefully your bar should blend in with the other months. Moving on to question 6, it says that Paul leaves home at 7:15 a.m. He travels to work in 20 minutes. Does Paul arrive at work by 7:30 a.m.? Tick your box as an answer. So what you want to do here is actually add 7:15 plus 20 minutes, which is going to give me a time of 7:35 a.m. So does he arrive at work on time? The answer is going to be no, and that is going to be your working out. So you could say that he arrives at 7:35 a.m. Moving on to question 7, it says Tyler has £20. A notepad costs £1.30. Work out the greatest number of notepads he can buy. So for this, what we need to do is do 20 divided by 1.3, just making sure the units of the amount that Tyler has and the cost of a notebook is both in the same units, which is going to be written in pounds. And if I type that into my calculator, I get an answer of 15.384. Now this basically implies that you can get 15.3 or 15.4 notebooks, which obviously is not possible. So the answer then is going to be 15 notebooks. In these questions, you always want to round down, because you want the whole number entirety. So the answer then is 15. Moving on to question 8, it says here is a number machine, and it says work out the output when the input is 10. So if I substitute 10 in the input, so I'm going to be doing 10 multiplied by 2, press equals, and then add 3 to the answer, in which I should have an answer of 23. Moving on to question 8, it says work out the input when the output is 17. So for this, what we need to do is we need to do the reverse. So for this, I've got 17. So here I'm going to then minus 3 and then divide the answer by 2. So 17 minus 3 is 14. And then if I divide that by 2, I get an answer of 7. Moving on to question 9, it says that a loaf of bread has 14 slices in each having a thickness of 12 millimeters, and 2 crusts each has a thickness of 15 millimeters. And the question is asking us to work out the total length of the loaf of bread. Give your answer in centimeters. So this length here is 15, so our 2 end pieces are 15. And each of these individual parts are both 12. Now you could do it this way of adding all of those. So if we count how many we should have, well, it tells you that there's 14. So the total length is going to equal 14 times 12 plus 2 times 15. And typing that all into my calculator should give me an answer. Well, this is going to equal 30. This is going to equal 168, giving me a total of 198 millimeters. But the question says it wants the answer in centimeters, so I divide that number by 10, giving me an answer of 19.8 0.8 centimeters. Now please bear in mind that the question is worth 3 marks, so it is important that you show you're working out for this question. Don't just simply try and type it all in your calculator and have a final answer. They will not give you the 3 marks for this. So make sure that in this particular question you're including 168, you're including 30, showing that you're adding it up, and then showing that you are writing the answer in centimeters. Moving on to question 10, it says solve c over 3 equals 15. So we need to get rid of the 3. What's the 3 doing? It's dividing. So to get rid of it, I need to multiply by 3. So c equals 15 times 3, which gives me an answer of 45. Then for question 10b, we want to solve this equation. So the first thing you want to do is expand the brackets. So if we expand the brackets, we get 8d minus 20 equals 28. 8d is going to equal, taking the 20 over to this side, is going to equal 48, giving me a final answer of d equals 6. Now alternately, what you could also do is, if I just write out this question again, you can get rid of the 4 by dividing by 4. So 2d minus 5 is going to equal 7. Then we add the 5, which gives me 12, and then I divide by 2, in which I get the exact same answer, so d equals 6. Moving on to question 11, it says here is a diagram, complete the diagram. So what we're doing is we're starting with the circle numbers, we're then following the operation that's in the square, and we're getting our answer. So if I then do, for this box, I need to do 15 plus 6.5, type that into my calculator, and I get an answer of 21.5. And then for this number here, I'm going to use 21.5, and I'm going to add 8, so I should have an answer of 29.5 in the circle there. Then for question 11b, so this time I'm trying to find out the others. So the first one you need to find is the circle, and I do that by doing the opposite. So this is going to be 25 minus 11, which gives me an answer of 14. And then I've just got to decide, what do I do to get from 5 to 14 in one single operation? Well, I add 9. Now for question 11c, it says work out the value of b. Okay, so what we need to do is we establish that this plus this gives me this. So what I know is that a plus 3a equals 28. This simplified gives me 4a, so 4a equals 28. Divide by 4, and I end up with an a value of 7. Then with 28, I do 28 plus 2a, and that equals b. Well, I've just worked out what a is, because that's 14. So that's going to be 28 plus 2 lots of 7 equals b. So 28 plus 14 equals b. And so b is going to be an answer of 42. And there is my answer for b. Then for question 12, it says here are some numbers. We've got 12, 8, 6, 11, 2, 7, 7, 18 and 10. And the question is asking us to work out the median. Now to work out the median, what I need to do is I need to order the numbers. So just worth just checking how many numbers we've got. So we've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So if I do 9 dashes, and then start writing those numbers in order. So what I've got is I've got 2, 6, 7, 7. I've got 8, 10, 11, 12 and 18. And again, I'm going for the middle number, which is 8. So the median therefore is going to be 8. For question 13, it says here is a pattern of squares on a grid, and it says draw 2 lines of symmetry. So for this, you need to make sure that you're using a ruler for this particular question. So, and where your mirror line should be is something along the lines of this. Now make sure that you want to try and hit those points, those squares, those middle squares halfway. Mine's slightly off, and again the examiner will allow either solid lines or dashed lines. Dashed lines is probably better, but if you did do solid lines, it's not the end of the world. For question 13b, it says here is a pattern again, and it says shade 4 more squares so that the pattern has a rotational symmetry of 4. Now the 4 squares we want to highlight are going to be this one here, this one here, this one here, and this one here. And again, use a ruler, trying to be as neat as possible, and don't forget to shade in the squares. For question 14, it says the Venn diagram shows information about people who work in a gym. T represents the number of people who can work as a trainer, and R is the number of people who work in reception. And for 14a, it's asking us to say how many people can work as a trainer and in reception. Now that is going to be our middle section, so the answer is 3. It then says how many people can work in reception but not as a trainer. So what we're looking for is the number that's just in R, which is going to be 12. It then says for part 14c, what fraction of all people can work as a trainer? Well, how many trainers do we have? Well, that's going to be 17 plus 3, which is 20. And the total number of people that we have, so if I add up all the 4 numbers that I can see in the Venn diagram, so 17 plus 3 plus 12 plus 5, that gives me a total of 37. And then just do a quick check to make sure, can we simplify that fraction? No, we can't. So the answer then is just 20 over 37. Where the 2 marks come from is having the right numerator and the right denominator. Now moving on to question 15, it says to get to college 120 students either walk, cycle or travel by car. 3/8 of the students walk, and the ratio of students who cycle and the ratio of students who travel by car is in the ratio of 1 to 2. And the question is asking how many students travel by car. So the first thing I need to do is to work out how many students walk. So 3/8 of 120. Of means multiply, so if I do 3/8 multiplied by 120 on my calculator, I get an answer of 45. So 45 students walk. Now, how many students are left? So students left is going to be 120 minus 45, which equals 75 students. So what I need to do is then share 75 in the ratio of 1 to 2. So let me just write in the ratio of 1 to 2, where 1 is related to cycle and 2 is related to travel by car, which is what I'm after. So 75 divided by 3, because I've got 3 parts, gives me 25. So therefore 2 parts is going to equal 50. So in the ratio of, although it's not needed, of cycle to car is going to be 25 to 50. And the question is asking how many travel by car. So the answer then is 50. For question 16, it says the original value of a car is 8,600. The value of the car decreases by 15% in the first year and then 10% in the second year. Work out the value of the car after these 2 years. So if we start by doing 8,600, and if we're taking off 15%, so that's 100% minus 15%, which equals 85%, and that as a decimal is 0.85. So if I multiply that by 0.85, I'm going to get an answer of, and typing that into my calculator, I get an answer of 7,310. So that's the value after 1 year. And then to work out the third year, I'm going to do 7,310 multiplied. And again, if I do the same calculation, again starting with 100%, take away 10%, that gives me 90%, and that as a decimal is 0.90. So multiply that by 0.90, and I get an answer of 6,579. So then I just scroll down and just write 6579. Moving on to question 17, it says match the algebra to the correct description. So 5x plus 10 equals 2x plus 4. Well, that is an equation. 3 lots of b plus, the fact that it's got this triple sort of equal sign will always be an identity. We've got 3l plus 8m, so I've got multiple letters with no equal sign, so that is an expression. And the inequality is one with the inequality sign, and so I should have something that looks like this for the matchup. Moving on to question 18, it says Sunil has £25 to spend on game downloads. He downloads 5 games, each costing £3.40. What percentage of the £25 does he spend? So let's have a look. So the first thing we need to do is work out the total cost of the 5 games. So total cost of 5 games is going to be 5 times £3.40, which comes up to, and typing that into my calculator, gives me a total of £17. So then to work out the percentage, it's £17, which is how much is spent. How much money is there altogether? £25, and I multiply that by 100, and typing that all into my calculator gives me an answer of 68%. Moving on to question 19, it says the table shows information about the number of houses with solar panels in a town, and the question is asking us to complete the graph. So if I just zoom out slowly so I can see it in all its entirety. So for 2020, that's at 210, so that's going to be there. At 2021, it's at 275, so that's going to be halfway between 300 and 250, which is there. And 2022 is at 350, which is there. And then all I then need to do is, with a ruler, is join those points up like so. Then for question 19b, it says use the graph to estimate the number of houses with solar panels in 2023. Now when it comes to predicting, particularly with a time series graph, what you want to do is look at the increases from year on year. So the difference between 2017 to 2018 was plus 15. Then we have an increase of 115, so that's 35, that makes it 50. And then from this we have an increase of 95, then we have an increase of 65, and then we have an increase of 75. So when you're doing the next increase from 2023, what you're wanting to do is basically including using one of these numbers of increase. So any acceptable answer will be any answer between, I would say, looking at the mark scheme, of 360 to 500. So that's where it should be plotted. So anywhere between this mark here and this mark here would be acceptable as possible increases. So again, just a benchmark, you want to kind of, now typically speaking for time series graph, you want to use the average of those numbers, but you can see that sometimes it has a small increase, sometimes it has a big increase. So any of increases of any of these numbers or something close by would be acceptable. But I would say anywhere your mark with a straight line being plotted anywhere between 360 and 500 will be accepted. Oh, and you just need to make sure that it's in 2023. So actually that should be here, not there. So let me just get rid of that. So it should be anywhere between here and here, and make sure that you've labelled 2023 in the bottom corner. Moving on to question 20, it says that a building in a shape of a cylinder has a diameter of 40 metres and a height of 55 metres. On the centimetre grid, draw a plan of the building using a scale of 1 centimetre equals 10 metres. Now for this, the plan is the aerial view. So what you want to do is you want to be drawing a circle with a diameter of 4 centimetres. So if you pick a centre point, which I'm just going to go here, then your circle should be going here. So using a compass and a center point which you've marked, you should have something that looks like this, like so. Then moving on to question 20b, it says on the centimetre grid, draw the front elevation. Well, from the front it's going to look basically like a rectangle. Now the dimension of the rectangle is going to be 4 squares going across and 5.5 squares going vertical. So you should have something that looks like this. Then moving on to question 21. So let's just zoom in so we can see it a little bit clearer on the screen. So it says these two rectangles have the same area. Work out the ratio of the perimeter of A to B. So first thing we need to do is we need to find out what X is first. So here it's got the same area. So the area of A is going to be 5 times 8, which is 40 centimeter square. So that means that the area of B, and to work out the area of B, I need to do X times 10 is also going to equal 40. So if I divide by 10, I work out that X is going to equal 4 centimeters. So now that I know that what X is, I can then work out the perimeter of both those shapes. So the perimeter, let's not use that pen there. So the perimeter, which is the distance around the shape of A, is going to be 5 plus 5 plus 8 plus 8, which gives me a total of 26 centimeters. And if I do the same for the perimeter of B, then that's going to be 4 plus 4 plus 10 plus 10, which equals 24 centimeters. So writing the perimeter of A to B is going to be 26 to 24, and I can write, or I can simplify that as 13 to 12. So any of those particular answers would be absolutely fine for the full marks. Now the question doesn't say simplify, but I personally would, so I would opt for 13 over 12 as my final answer. Moving on to question 22, it says that to the nearest pound, Rosie has £12. She wants to buy 6 drinks. Each drink costs £1.89. Show that Rosie can definitely has enough money to buy the 6 drinks. So the least amount that Lisa has, or Rosie has, is going to be between £11.50 and £12.50. So the least amount is going to be £11.50. So then if I then work out how much 6 drinks cost, so 6 drinks is going to equal 6 times £1.89. And if I type that all into my calculator, I get an answer of £11.34. So as £12 is greater than £11.34, Rosie can definitely buy 6 drinks. For question 23, it says the total cost of a taxi ride is calculated by adding a fixed charge of £4 and a charge of £2 per mile. Write a formula to work out the total cost in C pounds of a journey of M miles. So for this, what we need to then do is it's going to be a fixed charge of 4 plus 2 lots of M. So that's what C is going to equal, or I could write my answer as 2M plus 4. So any of those particular ways of writing the answer would be acceptable for the 2 marks. Moving on to question 24, it says at a school there are 912 students and the ratio of students to teachers is 15.2 to 1. The number of students stays the same, but the number of teachers increases by 2. Work out the new ratio of students to teachers, giving your answer in the form of n to 1. So first things first, what we need to do is we need to establish how many teachers there are. So if the ratio is 15.2 and that equals 912, then what we know is 912 equals 15.2 parts. Now, to work out how many students there are in terms of how many teachers there are, so the number of teachers is going to equal, as it's only 1 part, is going to be equal to 1 part. So then if I do 912 divided by 15.2, that gives me an answer of 60. So that means that there are 60 teachers. So if I increase that by 2, so now there's going to be 60 plus 2 teachers, so 62 teachers. Then the new ratio of students to teachers is going to be 912 to 62. Now what I'm wanting is the number of teachers to be 1. So to get from 62 to 1, I need to divide by 62. So if I then do 912 divided by 62, I get an answer of 14.8. That's rounded. So that will be my answer. Or if you recognize that you are working with whole numbers, I would round up so that we've got 15 to 1. But when it comes to n to 1, you can have decimals in your ratio. So personally speaking, I would opt for this answer here. Moving on to question 24b, it says that on a school trip, 1 teacher is needed for every group of 10 or fewer students. 72 students want to go on the trip. Lexi tries to work out how many teachers are needed, and she does 72 divided by 10, which is 7.2, and so 7 teachers are needed. Now, the question is asking what is wrong with her answer, and basically what's wrong with her answer is that she needed, you can spell it, needed to round up. Because you can't have 7.2 teachers, and 7 teachers would not be enough. So 7 teachers is not enough. So something along those lines would be good enough to get the single mark. Other possible answers, you could say that she's rounded down when she should have rounded up. You need 8 teachers. You've got that 2 students will not have a teacher. Something along those lines would be fine for the single mark. If you're not too sure, check out the official mark scheme. But I would say the most popular answer is that she has needed to round up, not down, will be the most popular one, or that they need 8 teachers. So something along those lines would get you that single mark. Moving on to question 25, it says a triangle is drawn using the lines y equals x, x equals -2, and y equals 4. And the question is asking us to work out the coordinates of the 3 vertices of the triangle. So for this particular question, what we need to do is we need to plot those equations. So if I just have it on the screen so we can see. So y equals x is a diagonal line going through 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, etc. So if I start by drawing that out, which is this line here, and if let's just extend that line like so, so it should sort of look something like this, and let me just label that line there. So I should have y equals x. I then want to do x equals -2, which is a vertical line through 2, so let's use a different color for that. And that's going to be here. So that line there is x equals -2. And I then want to draw a horizontal line through y equals 4. So that's going to be here. And that there is y equals 4. And what the question is asking me to do is to write down these coordinates of the triangle that I can see. So this coordinate here is 4, 4. This coordinate is -2, 4. And this coordinate here is -2, -2. So the answer that you want to be writing are those 3 coordinates in any order. Then moving on to question 26, it says that Ria wants to work out the volume of the hemisphere in terms of pi. Here is her work, in which we've got the formula of a sphere. So a hemisphere is going to be half of that. And it says write down 2 mistakes that she has made. So the 2 mistakes that she has made in terms of using the formula. Now, if you're ever unsure, I would strongly recommend for answering the question you have and then comparing that to the working out that you can see. Now, you can write any of these particular answers as the mistakes. So you could say that she's not cubed the radius. Instead, she's multiplied by 3, and that she has not written in terms of pi. as what the question is asking her to do. You could also say that she's not included the units, but I would say they are probably 3 of the most popular answers. And again, don't overwrite the number of mistakes that you're writing. You only want to include 2, so use the 2 answers that you are most confident with, but I would say any of those 2 that you can see on the screen would be totally acceptable. And that concludes the end of this paper.